Today's episode of Down with Joe DeRosa is brought to you by Cameron Esposito.
I paid for it myself.
Down with Joe DeRosa.
Hello, folks. Welcome to the podcast. This is Joe DeRosa, and this is Down with Joe DeRosa. One topic, one guest, 1 hour. Today we're talking about masculinity. There's certainly no shortage of viewpoints and opinions on this subject. Masculinity is what a man should carry himself with, or it's what defines real backbone, or there's too much of it in the world, or there's too little, or masculinity is a thing that shouldn't exist at all. So the question to me is masculinity good or bad? So often the case is that when masculinity is exhibited by a person, whether that person be a male or a female, it often leads to boorish, pig-headed, confrontational behavior. Masculinity and having something to prove always seem to go hand in hand. Fistfights, screaming matches, even plain old arm wrestling, all of these behaviors are the result of two people with too much backbone having too much machismo. On the other hand, masculinity often comes in quite handy. I mean, when you run into a maniac in an alleyway, or some other country points its missiles at yours, or maybe you're just getting picked on in the schoolyard, what else besides masculinity, or who else besides a masculine person, is going to assist you in acting with the proper strength in such a threatening situation? So, masculinity, it ain't all bad, it ain't all good. It's got its pros, its cons, its merits, its detriments. After all, you never feel safer than when it's shielding you, but you never feel more threatened than when you're on the receiving end of it. Seems to me that the masculinity argument is a lot like the gun argument. Nobody wants to have firearms around until somebody else with firearms shows up. Or maybe masculinity is more comparable to alcohol. It's one of those things that can give you confidence and strength, but too much of it can lead to a firestorm. I'd like to think that ultimately masculinity is something we just need to learn to properly respect. Because in a time when certain groups of people want to strip it away from us completely, and other groups of people want to react to that stripping by oversaturating themselves with it, we desperately need to find the delicate balance with masculinity before we turn into one giant, genderless, asexual clump, or erupt into a war of the sexes where teams are not defined by gender, but by the effeminate and the savage. I certainly look forward to discussing this with my guest today. She's a wonderful stand-up comedian who's become a much sought-after act on the touring circuit, and she's at all of today's top comedy festivals. You can also catch her running around with Anthony Jeselnik as his regular opener. Her debut comedy album, Grab Them Aghast, is currently available via Rooftop Records, and I'm super excited, as should you be, about her as-yet-to-be-titled Kill Rock Stars release, due out later this year. She's also a tremendous writer, having been published in all the right places like Vice, The Advocate, Laughspin, Huffington Post, and Splitsider. Finally, in the world of podcast, she's one of the top contenders, with her show, Put Your Hands Together, consistently being rated as one of the best out there. Please welcome Cameron Esposito.
That was a great intro.
Thank
you did a nice amount of research. I felt proud of myself.
Oh, thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you. People often say that they like the intros, and I've tried to consistently stay on top of that, because I feel like that's like thank you to the guests.
Yeah, nothing makes a comic feel more at ease than just to be like, I have done something. I can just talk for an hour. You know what I mean? Otherwise, I'd be like, what should I be doing? What should I be doing?
Yeah, nobody's ever been like, my intro didn't say enough. The worst response we ever got was Baron Vaughn went, that was a nice intro. It makes me wonder why I have no money in my bank account.
Well,
that
Baron,
was the worst thing somebody could say.
He's got a great, personality.
Yeah.
He's perfect at just like,
yeah,
I got new braces, but sadness as well. You know?
yeah. A little self-detrimental, that guy.
Yeah.
Or self-defecating. Is self-detrimental
I think self-defecating means he shits his pants, which I'm assuming he also does. We all do, right?
What is the term
self-deprecating.
For that? Self-deprecating.
Yeah.
I said man, I fucked it up twice.
Self-defecating is definitely poop.
Sorry, Cameron, I'm not going to lie to you. This isn't the first episode we've done today. I'm a little foggy right now.
You about to self-defecate?
I already am. I was doing it through that whole intro. That's why I made it so long, so I have time to finish.
Just really get it all out.
So I texted you to do the podcast as I do any guest that comes on. I text the list of topics over because I create a list that I'm interested in talking about, and then you pick whatever you like. So now we're talking about a thing we're both interested in. And you immediately, masculinity, I want to talk about that. And I thought, that's great. I think it's an interesting conversation, A, to have with a woman, and B, to have with a woman whose sexual preference is other women, because I feel like now we're in very interesting territory to really discuss
absolutely.
this. So what draws you to the topic? Like, what made you... Because you said it in a weird way, not in a weird way in the text, but you said, I'd just like to discuss that for an hour.
Yeah, yes.
You know?
Well, I guess, so I have many close male friends, but I do not live with a man, nor have I ever. And so there's this isn't necessarily a topic that I would talk about with, like, say, Anthony before or after a show. Like, we're not necessarily like, I mean, although it does come up, certainly, just little hints here and there. But the opportunity to really connect with a guy about what it feels like to be a guy, something I don't know that much about. The last time I dated men, I was 20. So, I mean, that's not really a man. That's like the beginning of what it means to be a man. So it's not something I've talked about with a lot of adult dudes, dudes who are fully formed that would have that. Yeah,
it takes time. It's funny because I just read a study about like human sexuality, and it said that basically a female becomes fully formed sexually, genetically, whatever you want to call it, at about 16, and a man hits it at about 18. That's not to say your body can't change after those times, but like I guess your genetic sexuality or something is sort of fully realized or whatever in those 2 years. So when you're dating 20-year-old guys, I mean, you're dealing with
little babies,
guys that have only been in that body for really 2 years. You know what I mean? And are still trying to get used to it. I feel like this masculinity shit gets really. It's not so complicated when you're that young. It gets much more complicated the older you get.
Well, maybe also it's not necessarily something that you've had to use in the real world, because if you're 20, you might not have as many responsibilities. The other thing is that it's very interesting to me that you're kind of taking immediately like a negative spin on it, because I also, the other reason I wanted to talk about it is because I would say, like, gender-wise, that, and this isn't even like a sexual preference thing. This isn't like that I would want to date women and that I will marry a woman. It's gender-wise, I think I have a lot of masculine energy in me, which works on stage.
Right.
I'm also very, like, tiny and, like, smiley.
Right.
And I definitely look like a woman.
Right.
But I also have, like, a lot of strong masculine energy, which I definitely use to do comedy.
Yeah, well, I mean, I'd be lying if I said I didn't have a lot of feminine energy. I mean, look at the way I'm sitting. First of all,
look at the way we're both sitting. I wish there was a picture of this.
Oh my God, that's perfect. Ernie, can you please take a picture of this? This will be posted
just
later.
How we're naturally both sitting.
Yeah, this was completely natural. Cameron is sitting like one of the Duke boys.
At the ankles.
Yeah, and I'm sitting.
You're crossed at the knees.
Yeah, like Melanie Griffith. Yeah, so, well, here's the thing with what I said in the intro. I definitely think it was probably a little more negative leaning than positive leaning, but I certainly didn't. That doesn't mean that my stance is that. I think what interests me about masculinity is that it's this thing that I'm supremely offended by the attempt to wash it away. I'm very bothered by that. I'm very bothered by the emasculation of men. I'm very bothered by this redefining of male.
So where do you see that? Tell me where you're seeing that.
I just kind of, like, sitcoms is always a very easy reference point. You know, I'm kind of tired of seeing almost every man, and it's changing a little bit now, but in recent years, many of the sitcoms, every male being defined as like a blubbering, bumbling moron that can't get it together, and the wife is like, oh, you schmuck, you know, and she's the smart one, and she's the savvy one.
Interesting.
And she's the sharpshooter, and he's the guy that I just want to sneak a hoagie.
So you read masculinity almost as having something to do with, like, being in control of yourself.
Well, no.
You know, just like being a leader in your own life,
just
as
not
opposed
being
to
a schmuck. You know what I mean? But like, I don't define masculinity as that. But I think it's emasculating when you start to only portray men in this light of stupidity. Do you see what I'm saying?
I do know what you're saying. I'm curious because I would say if I would have begun this exact part of the conversation, I would say things are more masculine. There's just a bigger split that now. Right. Because if you look at the movies that we're seeing, these Marvel comic book movies that are such mega hits that make so much money, even the bodies on the guys that have to be in these films now, like what you have to do to your body to be taken seriously. And I know not every movie is an action movie, but even love interests. I mean, I watched The Fifth Element not too long ago. I don't know the last time you saw that movie.
I saw it once 3 years ago.
Okay, so Bruce Willis's body is startling if you look at it now because he is the action hero in that movie. Right. And he's just built like a trim. I mean, he's definitely an ass kicker.
He's always been built he's always been a guy.
He's Bruce like Willis, a Bruce Lee built.
Yeah. Bruce Willis to me has band body, where you look like most guys in bands.
A drummer. Yeah,
you're like, that guy could put on any T-shirt and look just fine.
He's got kind of a flea thing going on. Yeah, that's true.
Well, I don't disagree with what you're saying about movies, and I do think that there is this split, which is why I said the thing I said at the end, which is I feel like we're falling into very dangerous territory these days with masculinity, where there are groups of people that want to just stomp it out completely. There should never be if we want to talk about it in the truest sense of the word, there should never be a hint of man. You know what I mean?
I guess I just don't see that. I'm curious as to who is, because I feel, I mean, this is so interesting to me because I am a lesbian. I couldn't have less use for men in my daily life. I love my dad. I work mostly with male comics. But I feel like the masculine is celebrated almost too much.
Well, that's what I meant by the flip side of that. Because on one side you have people trying to take it away, and on the other side you have people that are oversaturating themselves with it. And in reaction to that, there are people that are going, "Fuck you! You won't strip mine away." And then you'll see, right? Just pumping iron at the gym or whatever. And I don't want to be part of either of those groups.
Okay, who's your ideal guy? Let's say you're growing up and you're trying to figure out how to be a man.
Sam Rockwell is my ideal guy.
Interesting. Okay.
He's my ideal guy because he's my favorite actor currently.
He's great.
He to me captures. I like guys like him. I like guys like Vince Vaughn because they're not meatheady, macho, browbeating, fucking bully guys. They're not superheroes. They show an emotional side of themselves. They show an endearing side of themselves without being fucking weak and whimpering about it. They're just right in that lane of that's like a dude. That's a fun dude.
How is that conveyed to you? Is it the way they carry their bodies, like carriage, or is it the way that they look at the world? What is the same about those two guys for you?
I like a guy. I'm gonna just put this in male female. Boundaries first for a moment.
Yeah.
I like a guy that's able to say, I love you to a woman and be a pillar for her and treat his wife or girlfriend, whoever, with respect, but also understands that sometimes you can call a woman a bitch, not his wife. I'm just saying, if a drunk lady's yelling and you go, shut up, you fucking crazy bitch. You know what I mean? That to me is the balance. It's like, I'm a good man, but at the same time, I'm not afraid to show you that I'm a man sometimes, and I'm recognizing our difference, and you're being annoying right now, and I'm calling you on it. Whereas so many guys today are one or the other. It's either complete, porn-style, throat-fucking, women-demolishing animals, which is disgusting, or the other side of a guy that's like, guys, I just don't think it's cool to use the word bitch. It's like, what? Who are you? Who are you now?
I feel like, though, that person that you're talking about, I just don't think it's cool to use the word bitch guy is less common than maybe. I wonder who you know in your life that happens with.
No.
Because here's the thing is, are you talking about her as a bitch because she's a woman or because she's annoying you? I mean, I don't actually. I don't really use that word just because I just don't love that word.
Right.
If I was going to call somebody a name, I would call them a dick. That's what I would call somebody, even if it was a woman.
Sure.
But that's just because I hate dick. No, I'm just kidding. No, I would call them a dick, but because that's
Right.
just like, that feels right to me. To me, bitch, I have a hard time using any word where like I can imagine it being yelled at somebody while they're being hurt. So like I also don't use,
Well, sure.
like, even though I'm gay, I don't use like in words. Like there's some words that some gay people would use.
You can say slurs, like it's not like.
But I don't. Like I don't even say them.
No, I just mean like right now.
I know.
If you
What I
wanna
mean is, like,
recite
on
one,
the-
it's okay. I'm not gonna. Nobody's gonna think you're being out of line. Like
Yeah, I know.
speak
It's hard
freely.
for me to even say it. Is that, like it's hard for me to say it
Well, it's
even
'cause
now.
You don't have any fucking masculine. No, I'm kidding.
I mean,
I'm totally joking.
I think it's I think that there is a strong part of being a woman that like you have to grow up thinking about being victimized. You have
Absolutely.
to. You have to, and so it's just like a part of your
Absolutely.
brain that can never go away. Like the fact that Law and Order SVU. Do you know that Law and Order SVU is the longest running scripted non-animated television show?
Yeah.
15 seasons.
Yeah, well, I have a bit in my act about like I hate when women get mad at men for being overprotective. It's like, girls, because we don't have the rape threat. Do you understand that? Like every time you go outside, there's a legitimate threat that you face that we don't face unless we're in prison. If every time I ran to get milk, I had to go through a prison corridor to get there, you'd fucking worry about me too. You know what I mean?
I feel like our reference points on, we must know different types of people. Here's why. I've heard you tell that joke, and I love that joke. That doesn't make me, I am never going to be like, dating my dude friends. If they want to walk me to my car, absolutely. I'm so happy about it. I would never be like, please don't walk me to my car. I would just be like,
okay,
I'm so glad that you realize that we have different sized bodies and that I am, more statistically likely to be a victim of a violent crime.
Yeah. Yeah. No, well then we're on the same page.
Yeah. I don't
All right,
actually.
That's the podcast.
I feel like
we did it.
We just must be like running in really different social
I don't
circles.
think my example of the bitch thing that's why I said beforehand I'm going to put this in like black and white gender, in a gender scenario, because I'm trying to think of like, the bitch thing wasn't a great example. And now I'm worried that if Vince Vaughn or Sam Rockwell ever hear this podcast, they won't want to be friends with me. So they'll be like, I wouldn't say bitch. What the fuck are you talking about? It's my best Vince Vaughn impression. I've been working on a Sam Rockwell impression. I can't do it anywhere.
So you mean that it's not somebody who doesn't think men and women are different. You think men and women are different.
Absolutely. They're absolutely different. I think they're the most different things of all time.
I also think men and women are different.
Yeah.
Some
I also
people
think
don't
there's
think
some
that's
differences
true.
between black guys and white guys, and I'd like to talk about it.
But some people will not accept that.
Well,
that men and women are different.
Here's a much better example of what I meant with the masculinity, the balance of man versus, a decent man balance or whatever you want to call it. The guy that can be loving of his wife, his children, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera, but also doesn't have a problem with sometimes you got to hit a guy in his fucking jaw for running his yap. You know what I mean? That's a much better example of what I'm talking about.
Mm-hmm.
And the emasculated man to me, the man that's standing there like, we don't hit, and it's never okay to hit. Dude, shut the fuck up.
Well,
man.
maybe that's where we're on the same. I wonder if you and I are more alike, and that's the problem. Because
I think we are.
Because obviously I'm seeing the world as a woman, you're seeing the world as a man, but I would do that too. I'm the middle of two sisters, and I have absolutely like fought for my sister's honor because like they wouldn't do it. Like I've like gotten into fist fights on their behalf because I think I was kind of like the brother growing up.
Right.
I had a very emotional and like sensitive Italian dad. He's like very crying.
Right.
And so I think I was always like the protector of my family.
Yeah.
So to me, that feels like just fine. I have no problem with what you're saying.
Yeah.
And I also don't think that is some of the stuff that happens on stage that makes stand-up easy, is like that ability to know the difference between when you need to fight and when you need to let it go.
Yes.
And I think not all women are taught that skill. It's just like not something we teach women.
Yeah.
Because women don't necessarily have to fight. That's just like we don't say like fight or leave. Women don't learn that skill.
No, it's very different for women aren't fighters. Let's just face it. They're not
Because they're not taught
fighters.
to.
I know there's the Ronda Rouseys of the world, But women are not fighters. I was talking about women fighting. I go, even when they fight each other, they pull hair. I'm like, that's like, if two guys ever fought and one guy pulled hair, they would be like, the fight's over. You can't do that. What are you doing?
But you know that is because women also have to look female. Like, there's nothing worse for a guy than to be feminine, just like there's nothing worse for a woman than to be masculine. So right. I wonder if that isn't some of that hair pulling in there, just those women being like, I have giant arms and I am punching you in the face, but also look at this. Yeah. I'm still appealing. I mean, I have one long side of my hair. And like, that's, I think, when I've been trying to over years, people always ask me about my haircut. I'm always like, I think maybe part of it is me just like not wanting to let go of whatever like femininity having one longer side of my hair gives me.
I don't think you should change it. I think it's cool. And
I love it.
Very like signature.
Thank you so much.
Very important in this town.
Yeah, you got to have your thing.
You got to have your
I'm
hook.
Stuck with this stupid side mullet.
No, it's a great haircut. Yeah, I guess it's, for me, emasculation is, there's something about, and look, I don't know if you're going to agree with this or not. There's something about a man getting offended that bothers me. It's just like, and as much as I hate the fucking gorilla that pounds his chest guy, I can't stand bullies. I can't stand them. And I've been the victim of them. For a good part of my life, I was never a fighter. I got pushed around. I got picked on. I hate bullies. But I also, what I hate more than bullies are like fucking guys that get offended by shit. That's when I go, and I don't care if you're gay or straight. That's when I go, be a fucking man, would you please? Really? We can't talk openly right now. I guess that's kind of where I was going with the, like, if a drunk lady's yelling at me, I'll just be like, shut up, you crazy bitch. You know what I mean? And if a guy was ever like, that's not cool, man, it's like, dude, what the?
So what would be the, what would be like,
or if a guy is doing it too?
What would be
I'm
like
not
the
picking on
preferred
women.
reaction? How do you? I mean, I guess here's my question: what does it feel like for you if you like? Do you worry that somebody's going to jump in and tell you to shut up?
I don't worry about it, but it has happened.
And how does it make you feel?
Like when a guy does it, you mean?
Yeah, like you have done something that feels right to you in how you want to present yourself.
It infuriates.
And then a guy jumps in and is like, I'm not sure about that. What bothers you about that? Is it the...
Because it's like, to me, it's guy code and not in the MTV sense. You know what I mean? I do think there's a code amongst men and amongst women. I understand that code, there are things that supersede that code. Your marriage, your kids, you know what I mean? Loyalty. There are certain things that take you above and beyond that code. But on a basic day-to-day basis, I think there's a guy code and there's a girl code. And when guys are with guys, and just, again, to use this example of an offender, you know what I mean? And maybe the offender is another guy. And you handle it in like a guy way, and then another guy goes, "What are you doing, man?" It's like, dude, come on, man. It's like when a guy fucks another guy's girlfriend. It's like when a guy rats you out to your girl about some shit. You know, I know guys that have been with their friends and their friend cheated, and then they ratted out the friend. It's like, dude, you don't do that. You don't do, whether you thought it was wrong or not, you don't do that. That's like omerta shit to me. You keep your fucking mouth shut, man. You know, I'm real by like that Goodfellas code when De Niro goes, 2 things. You never rat on your friends, you always keep your mouth shut. Like, I believe that 100%. Shut the fuck up. It doesn't concern you, and keep it moving, dude.
Sure. I mean, and I think in the case that you're talking about, that's not even helpful to anybody. No,
but I think a lot of guys are built like that. Now, I've had, okay.
What do you think changed? Where are you stemming this change
This
from?
is, by the way, one of the moments, this is a very reoccurring theme on this podcast where I feel like it's not my podcast anymore and the guest is actually doing a better job.
Well, you can ask me.
No, you're
questions.
Doing great. It's not a contradiction. It's not a criticism. My words. It's not a criticism. I just like when this happens, when the guest will start to be interviewing me.
Well, I'm great at my job.
What do I think changed? I think like with most things that deal with discrimination in the culture of this country, there was a backlash because a bunch of rich, greedy, powerful, cocksucking white males treated a group of people like garbage, and then there was a backlash. And unfortunately, the way we deal with the backlash in this country is never letting things even out. It's, well, now it's payback time. And that's how it goes. The pendulum has to swing all the way in the other direction first. So you end up with these like sort of, unfair, kind of like Gloria Steinem fueled situations, like when she was an advocate for Linda Lovelace with the whole like deep throat thing, and she's like on talk shows with Linda Lovelace going, we demand justice, and this woman was abused and all this stuff. And Linda Lovelace is sitting there like, it's not fair what happened to me, and I was taken advantage of. And it's like, really? Because you seem to be having a great time with all this porno stuff until the fucking people threatened to send you to prison. And everybody else in that movie went up the river, and now you're getting around that because you're doing this whole I was held at gunpoint shit. Now, whether that was true or not, I don't know. But the point of the matter is you soaked up every bit of glory, and you didn't change your tune until the law came into the picture. And for Gloria Steinem now to sit there with you and let you kind of just glide through this without having any recognition of the other side of this argument, that to me is total bullshit. And that to me was the pendulum swinging back.
So I guess that maybe that's not something I necessarily define as masculinity or femininity. I mean, we would have a really different opinion on what you're talking about right now. Well, you and I would have a super different opinion.
We can totally get into it, but
yeah.
I'm not saying that's the definition of masculinity versus femininity. What I'm saying is when you said, what do you think happened? I think stuff like that started to happen where all of a sudden certain women could do no wrong. And no matter what logic you hurled at the argument, it didn't matter. What they said was law, and that was it. And at first, maybe those things had ethical purity to them. Maybe Steinem's head was and heart were in the right place. You know what I mean? Maybe Linda Lovelace was mistreated. Maybe all these bad things did happen. But the point I'm trying to make is when you tried to pose the other side of the argument, nobody wanted to fucking hear it. They wouldn't even entertain it, which to me is bullshit. And then
I don't think that's bullshit. That
ball starts rolling.
Yeah,
and then,
I understand what you're. I understand. I understand the point that you're making, but I do think that. So I think that thought patterns are very ingrained, and that. Wow, there's like so much to unpack here. First of all, starting with the fact that you just like offhandedly said cocksucker. Now that is the thing where like you don't have to worry about offending me, but like. That's a word that means something. And like the same way that now you're getting this point where you're like, I don't want to have to watch what I'm saying, or I don't want people to tell me like how people are offended. And it does matter what happened to that woman because it was mostly men that were controlling her situation and that were controlling her money. I mean, pornography is still not like a female headed field, and women in there and men also, but all but the women that are in there are going to be, if they're treated badly, they're going to be treated badly by a culture where they have no advocates. Like there aren't other women that are necessarily. I don't
think that's true for two reasons. Number one, with the Linda Lovelace thing, nothing's ever been proven, and she actually returned to porn years later. So she also lost like all of her money.
That's fine. I mean, I guess I would say if nothing has ever been proven, I am always going to say, that seems true. And I'll tell you why. Because why would anybody ever make that up? And I understand what you're saying, the legal
out of
argument.
Prison.
Okay, well, still, she had to go on those talk shows and have those conversations. And to be a person that actually has to go have those conversations, like that is an awful thing. It's not prison, but she had to be the face of shame. I mean, she was destroyed. Her life, it's not like she like had all this money and was doing fine. Like her life was destroyed by that movie.
But you don't think there's any validity? You don't think there's any validity to the fact that she was twirling around and smiling and having the time of her life in the spotlight. And the second the hammer dropped, she was like, I was abused. I was forced to do this. Literally the second.
I am never going to. Yes, actually, I don't. I am always going to assume that a victim is telling the truth. That's me because
Okay.
I feel like it's a lot of work to keep a story straight, and it's also a lot of work to go out and like tour on a circuit and say like, I mean, it's your life doesn't get better when you're in that situation. I think about somebody like Monica Lewinsky. You know, it's just like, yeah, she like got to write a book recently. She also, you know, I mean, her life was fucked. Her face was fucked, and then her life was fucked.
And it should have been fucked. She got the fallout of that situation. To me, was everything she fucking reaped what she sowed.
What are you talking about?
It's like, hey, Monica, you had a fucking dirty fling with the president in the Oval Office. You both wanted to do it. You both made a mistake. Now keep your mouth shut and keep it moving. But you wanted to go out there and get a little extra fame out of rolling over on the guy, and it blew up in your face. It's like, what do you expect? You were there.
But he is unscathed.
Well, he's unscathed. He was the president.
Sure.
And I wouldn't say he was unscathed. He was almost impeached.
Yes.
You know, he
but
was
it was
almost
and it was
impeached.
tough at the time, absolutely. And now he is revered, and his wife's political career is still going very well.
And I would say Monica's probably doing all right for you know what she's
doing. Oh my
doing.
God. Seriously?
She's selling books. She's putting out hats.
That for the rest of Bill Clinton's life, anytime he ever has a cigar, you know he gets high fives all around. For the rest of Monica Lewinsky's life,
I'll go with you on this.
Anytime she hands her license to somebody, they are going to be like, you are fucking kidding me. I know that you had a cigar in your vagina.
Well,
like, he wins in this situation. The guy in this situation is the winner. She
should have put a cigar in her vagina then. What do you want me to say?
But I'm saying our society, I mean, you can't just look at an action as if it's not in a world.
Listen, I can't. Here's the thing.
You can't just look at something and say, this is a thing that happened.
I will absolutely agree.
He was so much older. They were not at the same amount of power.
I will absolutely agree with you that Bill Clinton is far less scathed from the fallout of that situation than she is. And my two rebuttals to that are, number one, Bill Clinton achieved a level of success and was much more slick and crafty than she was, and got himself into a position where he was like, hey, man, I'm doing this, and now you're fucking with me, and I'm not going to let it bring me down. He earned that position. Whether or not you respect it or not, that's where he got himself in life.
I actually do respect him. And
she wanted to be the whistleblower, no pun intended. She wanted to blow the lid off of it. She thought she was going to do some goddamn, deep throat Watergate kind of thing and reveal all the information. It's like, hey, no. It wasn't. You were unethical. You wanted to fuck the president because you got stars in your eyes, and you did it. And then that wasn't enough. That wasn't enough. Then you wanted to go out there and grab an extra 15 minutes of fame by blabbing about it. That's, in my opinion, what it was.
What should she have said when she was being asked these questions?
Nobody would have. She didn't have to say shit. She was the one that fucking brought it up to everybody. She would have just kept her mouth shut. Nobody would have even known it ever happened.
I guess I feel...
Presidents have been banging girls in that office.
I also don't think
Roosevelt.
It is any of our business. As the American people, I don't think that... I don't think that the president's sex life has anything to do with us.
Right.
And it's like disgusting that we even talk about it. Not like, from a privacy standpoint.
I totally agree.
I don't understand why any politician, why we need to talk about their lives at all. The only instance where I would say this is not true is when somebody votes against something that they also partake in.
Right.
So like, for instance, somebody who's very pro-life getting their mistress an abortion, we should talk about that forever. But
sure.
If it's just like, dicks in various places, I don't really give a shit.
That whole, I think politics is a giant fucking dog and pony show. I don't believe in any of it. So, I mean, that whole thing, I don't give a fuck about what happens to Bill Clinton. I don't give a fuck about what happens to Monica Lewinsky, honestly, to either of them. I have equal respect or dislike or whatever you want to call it for both of them. I have an indifference. So, but
I do want to go back to what you were saying about the pendulum swinging.
Yes.
I guess to me it's very like you're not. This is not.
Just speak freely.
Okay. To me, this is the same argument as saying like, black people shouldn't get reparations because like that happened so long ago, and that wasn't me. I didn't do it.
I don't think that the gender issue is equatable to slavery.
What are you talking about?
I don't think you can.
Women used to be property. Women have been killed in massive numbers throughout all of time. Raped. Women are a weapon of war.
Look.
Dicks are weaponized.
Look.
Have you ever seen the television show Game of Thrones?
Yes.
Half of that show is about
like... Here.
I know, but
that didn't happen at all. That's a fantasy
But it is happening right now in the world, and there are women that are currently sex slaves.
Sure, of course, but we're talking about American women. We're not talking about...
There are American women who are sex slaves.
Look, there are American white males that are sex slaves. I mean,
percentage-wise, you know that's not the same.
Fine. But my point is I think comparing I'm not saying women haven't struggled, but I'm saying comparing the struggle
Women couldn't own property. They couldn't live on their own. They couldn't...
They were never...
They had to be baby factories.
Shipped here and whipped like
women
dogs.
have been beaten.
They have.
I'm not saying this doesn't have to be like a one-to-one comparison where I'm like, here's all the things that have happened to black people. Here's all the things that have happened to women.
But I'm saying to bring up reparations, I think that's a completely different discussion.
I don't think it's off at all.
I don't think it's a fair comparison.
It is shocking to me that that's true.
Listen, I'm not...
Only because like, hey, this is a very specific period of time, and there's no part of me that's like, slavery wasn't a big deal. Of course, I am saying with knowing in my heart that as a white person, I am still privileged in many ways. There are a lot of different ways that I want to have a conversation just to find out how we can get things to be better for everyone. I'm happy to have any conversation. Well, I'm happy to listen to any amount of like, this is what you could do to make it easier for me to go into a grocery store. Like, I'm happy to have that conversation.
Then let's say this. Then let's say that it is the same thing. Let's just say that so we can move forward with this with this part of the discussion. I mean, I don't mean like I'm over it.
I guess I'm talking about like power imbalance.
Let's
historical
say
power imbalance.
Let's compare it to reparations. Let's say it is the same thing. There's a big difference to me between reparations and two wrongs make a right. Those are two different things.
But who's being wronged in this second situation with men and women?
What I'm saying is in my opinion, situations like the Linda Lovelace thing, where we weren't even allowed to question the validity in the public domain or the public conversation about it. We weren't allowed to question the validity of a stance or whatever because people, the people surrounding it were saying things like, oh, bullshit, she's a victim and I believe her, which is your stance.
So, but my question is, how does that hurt you? Like,
well, I'm getting to it.
So you have to believe something that you don't want to believe?
No.
That, to me, doesn't sound like that's
not what I'm
difficult as being a victim who is not believed.
That's not what I'm saying. What I'm saying is situations like that where the seed's planted, and eventually, over time, that snowball rolls and rolls and rolls, and it gets to a place where there are situations where men have been completely stripped away of masculinity because we're rotten, we're evil, we did this, we did that. It's like, I haven't done any of that shit. I've just been a dude here that a lot of people think is gay because I'm so effeminate all the time. You know what I mean?
But I wouldn't call that masculinity. I would call that privilege. I think you're maybe conflating two things. I think we are looking at this in a really different way. I really would, because like, here's the thing. I think that David Bowie is fucking masculine as shit. I know he like in the 70s when he was like a glam rocker, I knew he fucked like dudes and chicks. He fucked whatever. And I think he is a hot guy. And I think he's a man. And then I look at like George Clooney, and that man looks fucking great in a suit. Suits should be made for that man. And you know he looks good when he's drinking. Yeah. And I mean like all suits should be made for that man. Yeah. That's why we should make suits. Right. So I think masculinity is beautiful. I mean I wear as much as I can, I wear men's tailored clothes that look great on my body.
That's, to me, that's masculinity in like the literal sense of like,
you're talking about not apologizing. And to me, that's not masculine at all.
I'm talking about, no. I'm not talking about not apologizing. No. That's not what I'm saying. I am talking more about the abstract sense or concept of masculinity, the idea of it versus the literal, like a dick is man.
Sure, I'm just trying to understand why it's masculine to like.
I'll give you
because I would say that a man like
what happened to
learning.
Who?
Like just a man that is learning can be just as strong as a man that is taking what he wants.
Well, here's the thing, though. We got into emasculation, which I know is related, but I think it's a little different than talking about the concept of masculinity.
Yes.
But, like, once we got into emasculation, that's where I started talking about there are certain groups that would like to see men stripped of all rights because of past deeds or whatever you want to call it.
I don't think that is true of anybody.
Look at the divorce laws of California. The divorce laws of California. Okay, let's look at...
I think if you're actually... Okay, so here's the thing. Divorce laws, that is people on the worst day of their life behaving the worst they're ever going to behave. Like, I don't think you can look at divorce laws and say women want men to be stripped of all their power. I think...
Alec Baldwin had to campaign because of how unfair the custody laws towards men were in the nasty ongoing for years and years and years divorce he was going through with Kim Basinger. He had to campaign because the laws were so woman slanted. And people,
But there's a reason for that, which is that there shouldn't be history of women not being protected. So you're right.
And
yeah,
that's
it goes
what
the
I'm
other
saying.
way.
It swings too hard in the other direction.
On the day that you are getting a divorce, every party in there, that is the worst they're ever going to behave. And I think if you talk to those women, those same women that you think are like taking Alec Baldwin for all, I think if you talk to Kim Basinger and you said to her, like, Kim Basinger, do you want men to be devoid of all of their rights to be men? I think she'd be like, no, I'm just fucking pissed at my husband.
No, but I want this certain man to be, and the law recognizes that, and that's why it's dangerous. It's a law that recognizes it for all men. It doesn't recognize it just for Alec
Men
Baldwin.
have men still hold more jobs. Men still get paid more money.
But back to my original point, that's why I said you can't deny
the women are
the
still a
fact
primary
that
caretakers.
There are groups that want to see it happen. There are groups that are reacting harshly against it, and there needs to be a balance. My whole thing was we need to respect it and find the balance of it. That's my whole thing. I'm just saying I can't not recognize that there are completely unfair situations orchestrated in great favor of women and not in favor of men. That's a real thing that exists. Now, whether or not there are ones for men too or whatever, I'm not saying there aren't. I'm just saying there, without a doubt, there are things designed unfair. I'm going to quote.
But we live in a world where a man could leave. That's the other thing about those divorce laws.
Like, where a man could leave?
Yes. Yes, dads can walk away. I mean, not just can they leave, like, physically, the baby's not in their body, but also then a woman is told she's a monster if she abandons her kids. A guy is pretty normative if he
I don't
leaves.
agree with that. I don't agree with that at all. I think especially...
Statistically, that is true.
No, I think...
More men leave their
I'm
kids.
not saying that more men
women
don't leave, but I don't think it's fair to say only a woman's considered a monster. And I would say, especially in the last 10 years, with the amount that rap music particularly has brought to light the issue of fathers leaving when they're not, and how harsh they are about it. I don't think it's fair to say that a man can just leave and doesn't get any shit for it.
But I mean, people might not even know. I mean, what I'm saying is he can go on with his life.
Right.
Like a woman, it's not the same. It's not the same for a woman to, like, so she's probably going to have the kids.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe because the custody laws are unfair, but also maybe, and just as likely, but probably more likely, because the dad doesn't want to be the primary caretaker, because he hasn't been in the past.
Right.
Because there are still more stay-at-home moms.
Right.
So there she is. Maybe she hasn't worked in a long time.
Right.
She's unable to get back into the workforce.
Right.
You're saying that, like, that law shouldn't be tilted so that that woman is extra protected? Because that's our moms. That's how I think about it. It's not just women. It's like, those kids, that's our moms. Like, what would you want to happen to your mom?
I know plenty. Here's the thing. I'll be honest with you. Most of the kids I knew when I was growing up whose parents were divorced, the mom's the one that split. So I'm just looking at it more on a case-to-case basis and saying, I'm just tired of this notion that if you're a guy, you have it on this fucking easy street and you could never possibly get jammed in the ass on something and, like, you know, it's just not possible.
But
and
nobody says that.
So many people say
No,
that.
you're
So many
misreading.
people say
I
that.
think you're
I'm not
really
misreading
misreading what people talk about in terms of privilege, which is this. Like, you are, okay, so how tall are you?
6'2".
Okay, so I'm 5'4". So when we walk down the street, we look so different. There are the amount of danger that I am in on the street, which is what you're talking about, walking me to my car. Fucking walk me to my car. I'm tiny. Of course I'm tough as shit. I'll protect myself if I can. But there's also situations that I'm going to be more likely to be a victim of.
Sure.
You know, like, of course women are raped more often than men.
Absolutely.
Of course, like, if a dude, if an assailant, if a mugger is looking at the two of us, we're on two different sides of the street, of course they're going to come after me.
Absolutely.
Of course. I'm tiny. And I think women just want some acknowledgement of that. I think if you were...
They get acknowledgement of it. They get acknowledgement of that. And that's
how often?
That's why I wrote that joke, because I got...
Which I love that joke, and I said that I love that joke.
I know you do. Look, we're not against each other here. We have disagreements.
I think it needs that acknowledgement needs to be for like a decade. Like, just give us a decade.
That acknowledgement.
It doesn't need to be like...
Let me tell you what that acknowledgement was met by your precious Gloria Steinems and the like. They're the people...
My precious Gloria Steinems. There's like a real Lord of the Rings element to that. Keep going.
Those are the people that turn around and say, I don't need any fucking man. I can protect myself. I don't need a man. I don't need this and that. I was out with a girl one time, and I go, walk on the inside of the street. I'm walking on the outside. She kept walking on the outside. I go, stop. Walk on the inside of the street. The man's supposed to walk on the outside. I'm fine. I can handle it. And I go, you're like so many girls I know. I'm trying to do something nice for you as a gentleman, as like a gesture of sweetness, and somehow you look at it as this attack on your independence. And it's not.
You are dating the wrong
women.
A date.
It wasn't even a date. It was just a friend. It was just a friend. Look, some of this are the bad seeds I've dated. I'm not saying
I love this conversation.
Me too.
Because I agree with you that there's like so much that we are lined up on, and then you'll say something where I can't even believe you're saying it. And I think I can see in your eyes that the same thing is happening to you. Like, we are on complete opposite sides of the same line. We're just like, oh yeah, I see it exactly like that. Wait, no, you see it like that? Oh, you're fucking out of your mind. Wait,
this
so what?
Yeah.
This is going to be personal. I'm just going to get personal with it.
Yeah.
Do you, how often are you dating?
Pretty often.
Okay. And do you have long-term relationships?
Very rarely.
When's like the last time you had one? Like, year what? Like, in terms of...
The longest I've ever been in was 8 or 9 months.
8 or 9 months.
Absolute
okay.
longest.
It sounds like maybe.
Yeah.
I'm going to just do a little podcast diagnosis. So like maybe you distrust women.
Oh, I distrust all people. I just happen to want to have sex with the women. So
that makes it so much harder.
Yeah, that adds a whole new layer of distrust. Yeah, but I mean, I just don't really trust people in general that much.
I have a hard time trusting people in general as well. But I do think that something that's like awesome about being a lesbian. Now, here's the thing. So often, there's like so many shitty things about being gay. One thing that's fucking amazing about being gay is that women can trust each other in a really nice way. I'm not saying like all lesbians are.
Because I have seen you women
yeah.
decimate each other behind your backs, behind each other's backs. I mean, it is a level
Maybe
of...
You're talking about in a dating situation?
I don't know in a dating situation. That's what I'm saying.
What I'm saying. What I'm saying is
what changes? Because when you guys are just friends with each other, it is like fucking... I'm like, oh my God.
Well,
these mortal enemies?
Yes. No, you're right. I mean, women are... men do their fighting with their fists and women do their fighting with their words. So women can be brutal to each other. I'm talking about, like, as a woman dating a woman, a lot of your... And this is from my personal experience, but a lot of you're like up against the same shit. Like, it's like you're both women, you're both gay, you're both like, you know, whatever. So you're looking at the world the same way.
That makes sense.
And so there's a certain commonality that it's just like, we have to stand next to each other against this.
Uh-huh.
And there's like a real amazing, like, kind of best friendship, but also like this like strength in numbers thing.
It's guy code stuff.
It's guy code stuff. I wouldn't even think to be distrustful of the women that I date.
Sure.
Because of that. It's that because you have that guy code. Yeah. And then that's also the person you get to fuck.
Well, it's funny.
And that's amazing.
I do trust my friends more than the women I date, usually. This is great. Any girl I'm dating when this comes out. This will be really good for me. Yeah, keep talking, Joe, and see if they can reissue that book Cheat while you're
Say
at
their
it.
names.
I do trust friends in general more than I trust the women I date because I know them better. But when I say friends, I don't mean just guy friends. I mean guy or girlfriends. It's a different relationship. It's a very different relationship. And often when I'm dating, I don't have that it's us against the world feeling because it's not us against the world. It's I'm from this tribe and you're from that tribe. And I know what my people are capable of. And so do you. And we both know what your people are capable of. And hopefully this doesn't get ugly because, hey, I know I've cheated before. And I know that you probably have too. So, that you start getting into all that shit.
I always think that for everything that externally and like societally is really difficult about being like two tiny lesbians that are walking down the street together, I'm so glad that I don't have to be a straight person trying to figure out what the fuck some other like completely different person.
It's horrible. It's horrible. And I think we really, and this ties into the masculinity thing. And this is a very touchy thing that I'm about to bring up. But people don't, I don't know. I don't think it's invalid and I don't think it's untrue. We want to recognize every gender difference between men and women except for the most basic one, which is the biological differences. And I don't mean like our body parts. For instance, you say women are physically... talking about dicks. Talking about that dick. For instance, if you say women are more physically vulnerable than men, which I know you agree with because we talked about the whole rape threat thing. There are women that get mad at that. And it's like, I remember seeing Rosie O'Donnell on a talk show when the Secret Service thing happened, when all the Secret Servicemen got caught banging all those hookers and stuff. Remember that when that happened? Like they were like overseas and they fucked all the hookers or something?
Yes.
And Rosie was on a panel with some guy on the morning show and she goes, this is why you need women in the Secret Service. Or you need more women in the Secret Service. This kind of stuff doesn't happen. And the guy goes, Rosie, nobody's saying that women shouldn't have the right to be in the Secret Service, but let's face it, they're physically more vulnerable than men are. Like when it comes to physically protecting somebody, you're better with a man. Let me finish.
Okay,
Let me just finish
I'm so curious to see how this is going to go.
And she goes, oh, please, and acts like this is the most sexist thing this guy's or anybody on earth has ever said. And it's like, you know what, Rosie? You can get angry about that all you want. But if it wasn't true, there wouldn't be a such thing as domestic violence. There's a reason that's a thing. And it's because men beat women up and women get hurt from it. And it's an unfair fight. And they should be protected in a better way than men are.
Well, I think that one thing that is maybe a little off about what you're saying is, so when I was using you and me as a comparison, we are both regular civilian people with like, pretty sweet bods, but we're not like,
thanks.
We're not ripping it up.
Right.
I think when you get into that sort of a situation, like those women that would be in the Secret Service, they would be Secret Service level women.
Right.
Like we have those women.
Right.
So I think
that's a good point.
I think another thing that sometimes people forget when they take an argument like that is like, I'm not talking about putting me in the Secret Service. Put a fucking college basketball player who happens to be a woman.
That's a great
who
point.
Has an amazing body but will never make any money playing basketball. Take her and put her in the Secret Service, and she's just as big as those guys, and she's just as agile.
That's a great point, and I didn't think of that.
I think
with that being said,
female soldiers it's the same thing. Like we're not talking about like doughy
that's a great
Midwestern
point.
housewives. We're talking about like Emily Blunt in the movie Edge of Tomorrow, which if you haven't seen, you should
still haven't seen it.
It's great.
And your
I yelled at you.
voice is still in my head to go see it. And every time I go to see it,
it's really
or
good.
think about it, I'm just like, I don't give a fuck about this movie. I just don't want to see it.
Well, now that I know like a little bit more about who you are as a person, I feel like you maybe would hate it.
Why?
But you should see it for the reason I'm talking about.
Wait, why?
Well, so Emily Blunt is the toughest person in this movie.
Why do you think that would bother me though?
I don't know. I wonder if you would see it and you just be like, "Oh, fuck this,"
No.
like this is like this pendulum swing thing.
No, we need to define what the pendulum swing is. Okay, this is the pendulum swing to me. When I say that's not fair, okay, and I'm referencing information that I've learned mostly from Bill Burr's act right now in this moment, because I don't want to look like I'm stealing his perspective. But I agree 100% with his take on the Tiger Woods divorce. 110%. That woman did not deserve the money she got. She didn't do a fucking thing to earn a dime of it. And I don't give a fuck if she's accustomed to a certain lifestyle or not. You were married to a guy. You fucked that guy. You bore his children. You deserve enough to live comfortably for the rest of your life. Fine. But just because he had a fucking thirst to get his dick wet doesn't mean you deserve $350 million.
Number one, why does it hurt Tiger Woods if she gets that much money?
$350 million.
He's still completely...
Doesn't matter. It's his.
He still has more money than he's ever going to spend the rest of his life.
It doesn't matter.
Number
That's
two,
not a fair argument. It's his. It's his. It's not hers.
I don't think so. I think maybe that the difference there is the duration of the relationship.
But that's what I mean by the pendulum swing. Why the fuck does she get that?
Can you imagine how difficult it is to date Tiger Woods and then marry him? I'm not talking about boohoo. Yes, that man is fucking gifted. He was dedicated. He deserves all of the acclaim that he got, but also, like, if somebody is with you in that time, their job is to be your wife. And that is an unpaid job.
And she was paid handsomely for it.
And she should have been.
Yeah. Well, but she didn't deserve the $350 million.
I would say that think that women sometimes have jobs that are not considered jobs. Being a mom to somebody's kids.
It happened.
That is a job.
Oh, okay.
That's a job.
Then you get enough money to take care of those kids. You don't need $350 million. It's just like when Johnny Carson, the whole thing from Eddie Murphy Raw, when Carson got divorced and he was married to this chick for like a fucking year and she took $75 million from him.
Well, then Johnny Carson should have a better lawyer.
Or no, $150 million. It was California divorce laws. You get half. It was California divorce laws.
What about like a prenup?
There's something.
Why are these guys not fucking protecting themselves?
Listen, I have a strong feeling Johnny Carson protected himself to any extent he could have. He had to give her half because of California divorce laws. He gave her half of his fucking money.
I'm not saying
Eddie
that.
Murphy's point,
but I think what we're talking about are outliers here.
Right.
We're talking about extreme outliers where somebody's married for a month and they get this much. Most of us don't have $150 million for somebody.
But I'm saying when I talk about the pendulum swinging and a man being stripped of any rights.
But the reason those laws exist is because of legal precedent.
Yeah.
So that's the most extreme. You're talking about like the tip of an iceberg.
Okay.
And that iceberg goes all the way down. We're talking about moms who have been moms for 20 years and they have no skills. They can't get back in the workforce because the workforce doesn't want to hire a 45-year-old fucking woman.
Are you telling me Mrs. Tiger couldn't have got by on $65 million?
I am telling you that you are using these extreme examples as if that is what divorce law is.
But you wanted examples of the pendulum swinging back.
But that is like falling off the edge of the pendulum.
California divorce law is the woman gets half.
Yes, but what I'm saying is that goes all the way down. Like that is
of course
there
it goes all the way down.
To protect the women that are in the worst position. And so if it also
why
has
can't it
to
be
go
case
up,
to case? Why does
because that's not how the law works.
Why can't it be case to case? Why can't it say if
because
determined?
Legal precedent is like exhausting, and the work of years of lawyers being
law. There are certain laws that are without question interpretive that have multiple levels. You can look at murder versus manslaughter if you want to delve into that. But there are plenty of legal things out there where if you fuck up or you're going through a bad time, the law can determine what the reward or punishment is based on the situation and based on the facts and information gathered. Therefore, when it comes to divorce, if somebody goes in there and goes, I want $350 million,
but you're talking about two rich as shit guys who are going to spend the rest of their lives fucking with everything they want. And you're saying
they
that
earned
those
every penny
two
of it.
guys
they earned
are
every
the
penny.
Reason that all of these millions of women shouldn't be protected throughout time.
That's not what I'm saying. What I'm saying is if a woman comes in and is down and out, okay, and in this bad position that you're talking about as a mom, and she's going to be high and dry, and she literally needs half. Fine, you give her half. You do the right thing for the kids and for her. I get that.
I guess I don't understand why you feel so bad for Tiger.
But what no, it's not Tiger. It's the example for the point. The point I'm making is nobody's saying you're not right in what you're saying. But what I'm saying is this automatic for the people bullshit is bullshit. It shouldn't just automatically fucking happen. It's not right. And that to me is the pendulum swinging back where it's like, well, women were barefoot and pregnant for all those years, so now they just get half. That's just how it's going to work. It's like, oh, fucking come on, man. That's not fair.
I just think that what you're talking about is, of course, the point that you're making makes logical sense. Of course,
then that's it.
Any woman that is, but there's no actual way to put that into. There's no way to put that into action.
Oh, there is 110% way to put that into action.
Okay, I mean, if you want to go back to school, become a divorce lawyer, then become a judge.
I just won't get married in the state of California.
I just think that you're talking about protecting the very, the best.
You're not hearing me. You're not hearing me.
No, I hear what you're saying. I just think it's silly. Like,
I'm
who
not
cares?
talking about, but what you're saying is almost communist. Well, they have it, so take it. That's not fair
what I'm
either.
saying. What I'm saying is that everybody has a job in a relationship, and sometimes one of those people's jobs requires them to leave the house. If you're married and you entered into that contract, you knew what you were fucking getting into. And your job was to go out and make the money and be Tiger Woods, and her job was to carry your kids in her body, push them out of her body, hold them, nurse them, take care of them with a slew of nannies, I'm sure.
Yeah.
But also, like, travel with him, go to events with him, look great on his fucking arm.
What a horrible life.
No, but it's also his life is not. I mean, he trains in the gym and then he plays golf, which he loves.
You have yet to justify though why it would deserve $350 million.
Because those are jobs. It is a job to be just like it is a
job
to be a
$350 million a year job.
If hitting a ball into a little cup is a $350 million
that is a real job. It's a job. It's on books. It's what you get paid for. And hitting the ball into the cup wasn't what made him all that money. It was being the best at the sport of anybody that ever lived, and it was getting endorsement deal after endorsement deal.
And you don't think being a mom is a job?
I'm not saying being a mom isn't a job and isn't work, but when somebody takes advantage of that situation because she's in the position to do so and says, I'm going to need $350 million, give me a fucking break, man. That's just gross. That's gross. It's be a better set a better example for your kids. That's like
now you're saying that she
that's just
he
gross.
Fucked around.
So what?
Well, what I'm saying is that you're talking about these two people who are in this extreme situation where they have more money than they will ever need to spend, who are both idiots, who both are like, I mean, yeah, okay, is she greedy? Sure. How do you know he's not fucking greedy? How do you not? You don't know anything about it.
What I'm saying is,
you're just defending the principle of a guy getting to keep half no matter who he puts his dick in?
No, what I'm defending is when I said the pendulum swung, it's not that because it's the pendulum swung. I'm not going to be mad about seeing Emily Blunt blow up aliens in a fucking movie. I'm not an asshole. I like seeing women do cool things. What I'm saying is I don't like when there are blanket policies to protect a gender. And
but
you can
blanket policies are the best way to protect the most people.
They're the lazy way. They're the lazy way. They're the court's way of saying we don't want to sort this out.
But
that's what it is.
Where is the time and
the time? Do you know how much time goes into divorce? It's crazy.
Have you ever?
In most states you can't even get a divorce.
In a?
Huh?
Have you? What is your experience with the law? Have you ever sued anybody, or have you ever? Do you have any? Do you know any?
Yeah, I know.
Have you worked at a? So I worked at a law firm.
Never worked at a law firm.
Worked at a law firm for many years. My dad is a lawyer. My sister's a lawyer, and I had to sue somebody once because I was ringing my bike. I got hit by a car riding my bike. I was completely in the bike lane. I was in the right. They pulled out of a driveway without looking. There were many witnesses. I went through this woman's windshield with my face. I broke her windshield. She admitted 100% liability. I had back problems that required tens of thousands of dollars worth of medical treatment.
Right.
And the insurance company refused my claim.
Right.
Because they refuse every claim.
Yeah, they're awful.
That's their policy, is that they refuse every claim, so you have to sue in order to get your bills paid for, which is what ended up happening.
Right.
And it took 5.5 years of going to depositions, and I had to go sit in court for a week.
Right.
And have a woman call me a liar because she said that even though witnesses on the scene saw me have a huge cut on my face, and saw me go through the windshield, there was no way to prove that the windshield is what caused the cut on my face.
Okay.
Like that kind of stuff.
Right.
Like that's the law.
Yeah.
The law is not like cut and dry, the law is a woman, is a lawyer trying to defend her client by saying that there's no relationship between getting a cut on your face and a broken windshield.
Right.
I think maybe one thing that, and again, this is my own personal experience with this. I think maybe one thing that prevents the kind of nuance that you're talking about, which I think anybody would be in favor of, is that the law is fucking broad as shit, complicated. It takes forever. You have to file a million things just to get anything done. It's not easy. It's not
right.
It's not like the fact that a judge would like look at stuff, financial records, and then do some equation where they figure out how much money everybody gets. Like, the judge doesn't give a fuck. They have a million other things in their docket.
Right.
Like, I think you're looking for this ethical nuance that practically I'm saying to put that into practice, we need to do the most good. So yeah, Tiger might get hurt, but that means that 100,000 women don't get hurt. To me, I think that's still the most good.
Okay, well that puts it in a little more.
Like there's a bigger nuance there.
I understand that. We're having such a good conversation here.
I'm exhausted, but I can't stop.
I can't stop either. I feel like I'm at a buffet when you just keep eating, and I'm not
even gonna eat this shit. I just keep going back.
Yeah. Let's stop here. We're gonna keep this conversation going. First time ever, down listeners. 2-part podcast coming at you. We're gonna stop here, Cameron. I want you to plug your stuff, and then we're gonna restart again.
Yeah, you can find me on Put Your Hands Together, which is a stand-up podcast that I record at the UCB Theater, or on Twitter at Cameron Esposito.
Check that out. We'll see you for part 2 next week. Cameron Joe DeRosa. Hey guys, welcome. And gals. Why am I excluding them? Guys and gals, welcome to Down with Joe DeRosa. This is part 2 of the masculinity discussion that I had with Cameron Esposito. There was so much fire. We had to cut it into 2 parts. So this is the second part. We're going to get right into it. If you didn't listen to the first part yet, what are you, a fucking sociopath? You know? What do you watch Empire Strikes Back before Star Wars? No. Don't do this like a prequel thing. Go listen to the first half, then listen to this half. And this second half of the discussion takes, I think, sort of an opposite perspective, or we kind of delve into the other side of the whole masculinity argument, at least. So I really liked it. I was proud of this one. Check it out.
I mean, we can have these philosophical debates, and I would fucking love for everybody to get everything that they deserve in the world.
This is what I want to get to the bottom of. Do you really think?
I can't wait to hear this question.
Do you really think there are no situations or examples or anything that you can really cite right now where men are expected to act less traditionally like men? And forget the negative bullshit of like they're warmongers and I hate all that stuff too. But do you really think that it's sometimes when we talk about this pendulum swinging back, that it is sometimes very unfair where men kind of get put into a corner with tape over their mouth, and it's just like, you're a man, that means you're a pig, that means you're wrong, shut up. The woman is always right. She's always the victim. Don't you think that's kind of unfair? Don't you think that does happen? And that is part of the backlash for the ways that our fathers or grandfathers or whoever fucked up? And I had nothing to do with that.
I just think, again, so that I had nothing to do with it. That's why I said the reparation things earlier. That's why. Not because I think like slavery and women's issues are a direct one-to-one correlation. There are no issues in the world where you can be like,
oh, you just changed your tune.
Vietnam is... What I'm saying is that you can look at the similarity in what you just, in the way that you just responded, which is that you said, I didn't do it.
But here's the difference between reparations.
I would just go back to the same point I just made, which is that you have to do the most good.
Right.
And so if one guy has to stand in the corner and he has to shut the fuck up, I'm fine with that.
But here's the difference between reparations and a guy being told to shut the fuck up. That guy reparations don't affect me. Reparations are money from the government. That doesn't affect me. That's
So you don't think that you should have to? Okay, fair enough.
It's a different
I understand what you're
thing.
saying. My question is like, you don't think that? I grew up in a really, really white area, really super white
Me too.
suburb of Chicago.
Me too.
So I just didn't know any black people when I was growing up.
Right.
The only black people that lived in my town were Bo Jackson's kids. They went to my school. It was amazing because he was like one of the most famous athletes.
Where did he live?
He lived like a couple towns over because he had retired from. This was like after.
Why didn't his kids live with him?
No, I think they commuted to like the school.
Oh, okay. Sorry.
No, but
Got it.
because it was like a Catholic school.
Okay.
So they commuted to this school.
I got it.
It was just like the best.
I went to Catholic school too.
Yeah. So, I mean, my point is, in college I had a black roommate. That was like the first time I ever lived with a black woman. And there were just moments where if she would talk, I would just listen to what she was saying. Because I was aware of the fact that there were probably some situations about like the way that she grew up
Right.
that I didn't understand.
Sure.
And I wanted to know what those were so that I could like do a better job in the future.
Right.
So I'm saying like, I think that's what women want. If you think that women want more than just like an awareness of where you've come from, I think women from men, this is, I think, what women want. I think women want an awareness of where men came from. And I think women want an awareness of where women came from and the ways that those things are different. And also the ways that we can like listen to each other better to make it easier on each other.
Yes.
Like if you said to whoever you were with, you said to your, and you know, also gender and masculinity and femininity, a lot of this is also social construct. This isn't necessarily who we are at our most basic, but it's who we are because we grow up with the things around us.
Right.
So if you end up with this woman and you say to her like, hey, because of the way that I grew up, it's hard for me as a guy to always say exactly how I feel, but like, I love you. Sometimes when I get angry, I like might say that like, I don't know, somebody's a bitch, like just to go back to your thing. And like, you should just be like, okay, honey, I'm on your side.
Mm-hmm.
I think that whoever you're with, I would hope that she would be like, okay, got it. And because of the way that I grew up, I was taught to be very emotional. And so sometimes if it feels like it's too emotional, you should just be like, honey, no problem.
Right.
Like we should just acknowledge the fact that like we have different stuff coming in. And I hope that that's what ends up for you. I just don't, I think you're, nobody would really want what you're saying, which is that I don't think any of these women would really want for men to be like cowering in the corner and shamefaced between their legs. I think if you start a movement, you have to be fucking strong about your movement. It's the same way that like, if I said to you,
I disagree with that. And here's why I disagree with that. Because when you brought up black people and the struggles that they've gone through, 5% Nation of Islam, particularly in the 60s, would have absolutely had no problem with saying the white man has faded away forever. Good. That's good.
okay, yeah, that's what I'm saying.
So I think there are absolutely extremist
but again, you
feminists
got to
out
look
there
at the
that
most good. So you are spending so much time and energy as you think about your own masculinity, focusing on these extreme 5% feminists. Because I'm a feminist, but you know what? From the way you're talking about it, you're a fucking feminist too, because you want women to be treated equally. That's all feminism is.
Sure.
And these like 5%ers, I mean, they exist about everything. Those are the people who fucking bring guns to like Walmart.
But that's
they
what I've
exist
been
about everything.
saying from the beginning
But
of the
they're not
podcast.
relevant.
You kept saying
No.
they don't exist.
Because 5% is ever approaching zero.
Well, I don't know about that. 5% may be in theory approaching
I think
zero, but it certainly
you're
does not.
using it where you're saying like this is a legitimate
I'm
person
not
and
Fox.
this is a person.
Hold
and
on a second.
You're saying that this 95% of women that are rational and want to be treated the same and do want their fucking money when their husband cheats on them and leaves them, that 95% is not the same.
I don't
as the
understand
5%.
how cheating equates to money. I don't. I'm sorry. I don't. And
If it ends a relationship and that woman's job has been to be your wife and to be the mother of your kids, she should get money.
fine, she should. Some.
But we did some movement in this conversation.
We've done a lot of movement. But I think you're picturing me as this like Bill O'Reilly type who sits in here all day being like, hey, the fucking immigrants are going to take over and the women are going to cut our dicks off. And I'm not.
No, like, I don't see it that way at all.
I identify probably much more with women than I do with men. When I was a kid, and I hated sports my whole life. When I was a kid, my uncles and my dads and my male cousins would all at, for a holiday afternoon, whatever, watch football in the living room. And I would sit with my aunts and my mom and have cake and coffee and talk. My best friends in the world aren't all women, but I have several very, very close female friends. I remain friends with 90% of the girls I date.
So I think all of this stuff is stuff I would believe.
But here's the thing.
Just based on the conversation we've had today.
Yes, but that doesn't mean that But
that is not my point, though.
This is what
I'm going to hear your point, and then I'm going to.
Here's my point. My point is this: I think it's identifying with women so much that makes me so angry when I see them act in a certain way, negative way toward men. That's what bothers me.
But I think the number. So I'm going to just put it in stand-up terms. This is the stand. I'm going to put it in stand-up terms.
Let's put it in stand-up terms because I was wondering if we'd get to this.
Yeah.
Because this is the.
Does it happen in every podcast?
No, but this is the most delicate of all the male-female conversations we could have. Is the stand-up game, and
actually, I'm not even going to talk about male-female stand-ups. I'm going to talk about what we have in common.
Yes.
That I know we will irrefutably agree on, which is stand-up.
Yes.
Because
and we both love pussy.
Yeah, fucking pussy for sure. All right, so I think that every stand-up is so dedicated to the craft. You have to be.
Right.
Fucking love it. You're in love with it. You
Right.
love it, and you love yourself for doing it. Like, you love being a comic, and you love people responding in a positive way.
Right.
You need it. Otherwise, why the fuck would we be on stage?
Yes.
So you get like 100 tweets at you that are like, I fucking love the shit that you're doing.
Mm-hmm.
I think you're amazing. And you, Joe, know how hard you're working. So when you get those tweets, you're like, fuck yeah, somebody sees how hard I'm working.
Okay.
And then you get that tweet that's like, fuck Joe DeRosa.
Right.
That dude is not funny. I fucking hate him.
Right.
And that affects you.
Yeah.
Sometimes I find in myself more than the 100 that are in my favor. It's that one motherfucker who you can't reach, who you're like, why the fuck can't I reach that person?
Right.
That outlier, like that's the person that drives you crazy.
Of course, yeah.
So this is what I'm talking about. I think that you are looking at this issue and you are looking at that one person who's giving you that feedback that's like, why can't you be a more sensitive guy? Why can't you shut the fuck up and not call? I think you're taking that woman, that like imaginary woman or man.
Or man.
You're taking that woman or man and you're making him that tweeter, that fucking bastard. And instead you should just block that shit out of your mind and look at the other 100 people who are on your side. Because I just think you're taking this extreme viewpoint and you're like kicking it over as if it's more relevant than it is.
Well,
fuck those people.
All right. Possibly.
Fuck those people.
Yeah. Well, yeah.
Keep doing what you're doing. And if somebody tells you to stop it, then you just like, I mean, because here's the other thing. You block that person. You don't go and have like a Twitter war with them.
Oh, sometimes
unless you're a crazy person.
I do sometimes.
No, you gotta fucking cut it off.
You don't know the animal you're dealing with right now, Cameron. We don't know each other very well. I feel like theoretically we could be dear friends.
Yes.
And have really wonderful, heated debates over drinks and I feel like it'd be a really good
I love screaming. There's nothing I love more than the yelling we've done in this house. Are we almost done? Did we finish it? No. Are we like? I can't even tell how long we've been going.
I mean, I'm
like sweaty through my whole.
If you need to go, we can
so
stop.
Worked up. No, I mean, I just was like.
I mean, we're approaching a 2-hour mark, if I'm not mistaken. Are we not, Ernie?
An hour 18.
Oh, we're only at an hour 18. Oh, okay. God damn it!
How long is this supposed to be?
It's only supposed to be an hour, so I thought we were close to 2 hours, and I was like, oh, we're gonna get 2 episodes out of this.
Oh, well, let's just bow out. Because I feel like we've like figured out the point that we disagree on, which is like how important this Yes. Like
how important the how important the two opposed factions are.
Yes. Like how, and also how extreme, like if somebody wants you to tone down your masculinity, how extreme, like I think you're looking at this, I see this person as being an outlier. And I think we are all trying to move towards creating better lives for each other. It seems like you're finding like a lot of challenge from maybe a smaller number of people. I'm
not finding as much. Here's the thing: since we're in the discussion, I'm in the discussion. You know what I mean? Like I'm letting it fly because it's what we're talking about. But I certainly am not that troubled by this on a day-to-day basis because I have an equal dislike for the opposition of that, the extreme opposition.
Maybe that's why. Maybe that's another thing that I would just say. I would just point this out. Maybe that's another thing that makes this so hard for you. Is I think for a woman that's in that situation, she probably thinks about this every day, all day.
Really?
Yes, I think so.
Yeah. Well, I mean, possibly.
Like if you're in the party that has traditionally been wronged, I think it affects you on a day-to-day basis.
Sure. Yes, I would agree with that. But my point is we never even got to bashing the other side of it,
yes,
which is the overly macho. I hate that just as much. I can't stand those people. You know, I can't stand guys that I know guys, and it fucking infuriates me. Here we go. Now it's going to swing the other way, Cameron. You going to enjoy this? I fucking can't stand it when a guy I know, when a straight man I know, and I go, you know, he's a good looking dude. That's Sam Rockwell. Sam Rockwell again. And the guy goes, whoa, dude, come on, man.
That's awful. I'm so sorry if you really have to hear that. That is so stupid. There's nothing stupider in the world than that.
It's fucking retarded.
Right.
And that's the exact opposite of the other thing that we were talking about. And I hate that just
Actually,
as much.
It's interesting that you would say that it's the exact opposite because my fiance is also a comic, and she was at an open mic last night.
Do I know her?
Rhea Butcher. I don't know if you know her.
I don't know if I know her.
She was at a show last night. She was texting me because she was like, I just heard the most hilarious. Like sometimes we gotta have to keep each other abreast on like what really like wild things are being said about women or gay people. And she was like, I just heard the best one. She's like, I just heard a guy get up on stage and talk about how he doesn't wash his asshole because he's not gay.
Wow.
Because assholes are gay, right? Like in his mind, his own butthole is trying to get him to fuck it.
Right.
Like, and she was like, the best part about this is like, he also has a dick.
Right.
Which is like, so if we're going to break down what gay dudes are, they're, they are men.
Asshole.
Yeah. So they are men. So they do have those things.
Yeah.
But, like buttholes, not super gay.
No.
I mean, like they can be used for sex.
They can be used in a gay way.
Lots of different types of people.
Sure. Just because it can be used in a gay way doesn't make it gay. The color pink, for instance, can be used in a gay way. Doesn't make it gay. Also, get over it.
That's literally. It's amazing also because we were laughing so hard, just like this poor guy. Can you imagine what your life is like if you can't wash your own asshole?
I remember
the constant fear that you must live in your daily life. Like, because not only does your ass like smell and feel awful, but also like you are that terrified that you are going to turn yourself gay.
I'm going to take you the other way on this. I love washing my asshole. It's my favorite part of the shower.
It's great. Very refreshing.
Very refreshing. That's when you're truly clean.
Yeah.
It feels good a little bit.
It feels great. Of course it feels great. That's why we want to shit.
Yeah.
If it didn't feel great, we wouldn't be able to go to the bathroom.
Exactly. I remember I once wore a pink shirt. I have pink shirts.
Yeah.
I've got a few of them, Cameron.
Like a button down?
Yeah. And I remember I wore a pink shirt once to a show, and these comedians, like, they just wouldn't let it go. They made fun of me endlessly. And I was just like, guys, it's a fucking pink shirt. Like, it's it's a cool fucking shirt. It looks great with these jeans and like it looks like
a good
man's
skin tone for pink.
I got a great skin tone for pink. I don't mind saying it myself.
Yeah.
You know, but like they just couldn't fucking handle it. And it was just like, you know, dude, like that is so stupid
So
to me.
I have a theory that this relates to, which is what when Rhea came home, and this is what we were talking about. I think that a lot of that stuff, that like fear of being gay, is actually misogyny. I think it's like men not wanting to be women. You know, because like if you really break down, I mean, I've just heard so many jokes over the years. So I feel like I kind of have like this understanding of what guys are afraid of. Because of course we like joke about our biggest fears sometimes.
Right.
And it really feels like the biggest thing that guys are afraid of is like a violation, being like an enter. Like they don't want to be like an entryway. They don't want to be entered, which would be very feminine, right? Like that is the way that women have sex. They are entered. But like to be a guy and to have that barrier broken is like really scary.
I don't mind an entrance.
Well, I mean,
I don't want a girl to strap on a dildo and bang me with it, but I don't mind a finger entrance.
Because it feels
Ernie,
good.
I don't know what your thoughts are on it.
He's into it.
He's into it. Ernie silently shaking. Ernie is the silent Bob of this podcast. He's so concerned with the sound quality that he won't speak off mic, and he just shakes his head. But I don't mind an entrance. And, you know, I've said this very publicly before. I'm dear friends with a transsexual porn star named Bailey J, and I have made no bones publicly that I would suck her dick in 2 seconds flat. Do I want to suck a regular guy's dick? No, but hers I would.
Because she's a woman, right? So that's a little different, right?
Well,
like
she
she's
was
a woman
a man.
but I mean, what I mean is she's a woman with a dick.
Yes.
So that's still a woman.
It's still a woman, but it's
because I'm only going to say this because
you know,
because the biggest consumers of transsexual porn, are actually straight men, because like gay men won't necessarily want like they're not like only into dick.
Right.
They want like a man.
And it would have to be that like for me, if I was ever going to go down that road, it's got to be a really hot.
I like what your two little fingers are doing.
Women,
I wish that we could just a picture of. I just want to know what. I can't wait to see what these two little fingers.
You're about to see. You're about to hear. It'd have to be a really hot woman with a dick.
Yeah.
And it'd have to be like Bailey style, where there is not a trace or the tiniest trace of pubes, because once the pubes erupt on
these
the
are
dick,
little pube fingers.
These are like, this is the amount of pubes I could take. Once the pubes on the dick erupt, then it's too much like a man's cock, and I'm like, I'm out of it now.
I understand what you're saying though,
but
I think that you're not. That's not as strange as like it might seem in your own mind. Or I don't know if you think it's strange or what. I think that like that is because like I'm assuming you like your dick, right? You're into your dick. You think it's cool that you have one?
You mean that like you like your soaps, or like you like my dick personally?
You like your
my
dick.
own dick.
Yeah.
You weren't saying it like, you know, Joe, he loves his dick.
No.
He's always getting dick, that guy. I thought you said
no,
it like that.
You like your body, right? I mean, or like no, I'm not saying you like
what are
love
you,
your.
nuts?
No, but I mean like
disgusted by
you
myself.
like that you have a dick.
Yeah.
It feels good. You do it. You use it to.
Can I tell you something? I don't know if I've ever admitted this publicly. I, in the deepest way, wish I was a lesbian. I wish I was a female lesbian.
Why is that?
Because dicks are problematic. So
you don't like your dick?
No, I like my dick just fine. I like yanking it, jerking it, if you will.
Yeah.
I like boning stuff with it, banging, if you will. I like doing a lot of things with my dick. I like having it sucked.
Yeah,
one
have
of the
it
things.
over for coffee.
Yeah. I like being a dude, but there are so many times where I'm like, I wish I was a lesbian. It would just be. It just seems like such a more convenient practice for me because I like girls. I identify more with girls than I do with men. And also, dicks are problematic. You get fucking boners sometimes when you don't want them. And then that's a thing you just got to deal with. Like, there's no way a chick's ever going to be like, you know, there was never a moment in a classroom where they were like, Miss Esposito, come to the board. And you're like, I can't because your pants were soaked through.
No.
Like, it's like, but as a guy, you'd have a boner.
Well, wait,
be like,
maybe your pants would be soaked through. You mean, no, because I will
From
say.
arousal?
No. But I will say that there is a female equivalent to this, which is getting your period.
But
all
nobody,
over your fucking pants in high school. It happened to every girl that you know.
That's embarrassing and that's terrible, but it's not like having a hard-on where they're like, what are you, some kind of fucking pervert?
Well, I don't know. I think for women, it's like a... I totally understand what you're saying.
Yeah.
But I also think it's like the biggest fear. Like, I think we have a biggest fear, too.
I'm also... Here's another reason I wish I was a lesbian.
Tell me.
Is because I am a sort of aggressive person. I have an aggressive personality. And by aggressive, I'm not a fighter. I've never been a fighter type. If I have a few drinks in me and somebody says something to me, I might run my mouth a little bit, but I won't know what to do if he hits me. I'd probably say I'm sorry and run away. But I'm not but I do have a bit of an aggressive personality, meaning I'm very passionate, I'm very loud. So I say all the time, when I'm at 5, it's like a normal person's 10. So I wish I was a girl, because if I was a girl with this sort of intensity, I think A, it'd be a little unique. Be like, man, that chick's got some fucking piss and vinegar in her. And B, it would never come off as, potentially frightening, honestly. I don't know what other word to put on it.
Well, I will say that I think I always think about, like, on stage, the benefits that I have from being a woman. I mean, there's, like, off stage in terms of booking and in terms of the way that I have to look, and the fact that I'm in the vast minority. It really sucks in many ways. Right. But on stage, it fucking rocks to be a woman for what you're talking about, because I actually can be I'm like very smiley, but I can be really yelly.
Right.
It's not scary at all. I'm never going to be, the only reason I'm ever going to be scary is just the fact that I exist, which does happen. Like,
right.
Sometimes dudes will heckle me because they, like, can't believe there's a lesbian in the world or a female comic. But, like, other than the fact that I exist, I'm never going to be scary.
Yeah.
So I agree with you. I mean, I think that is actually a real thing.
Yeah.
Like a woman with, like, a big personality.
I have moments on stage where it's like, where I've been like, I've come off and been like, why were they not into, and somebody like, dude, it was, you're like, you were being too loud. Like, it seemed like you were barking at them. And I was like, no, I wasn't.
I totally know what you mean.
I don't get it, And I also think too, that as a woman, when you delete that masculinity thing, when you at least delete the assumption of masculinity, meaning when you walk on stage, the average person, male or female, isn't expecting masculinity to come from you. So you're starting from a little bit of a more fair place, I think. When a guy comes on stage,
I think it's totally opposite, but I'm curious to hear where you go. I would finish.
I was just going to say, when I go on stage, already I'm a guy, and then on top of it, I am a bit of an abrasive guy. Uh-huh. So then when I do certain jokes, they come off meaner than I want them to, or more aggressive. I used to have my first album, I have a joke. One of my best bits I've ever written. I'm super proud of it. But I had a hard time with it in the beginning, because it was about was when the We and Oxygen networks were really, like, breaking. And I talked about how I thought these networks, made for women, by women, were going to be like these really wonderful places that would have, like, Susan B. Anthony documentaries, and, maybe stuff about Gloria Steinem or whatever, stuff that explored things that would uplift the gender. And instead it was just like garbage and like Bridezillas. And I did this whole fucking bit about Bridezillas and how the women are so awful and da-da-da-da. And how they keep saying it's my day, it's my day, my day. And it ended with me saying, like, it all built up to this final moment where I was like, I just wish for once the guy, that's just completely a sap through this whole thing, like right in the final moments of that episode, when she drops her when she drops her guard for 2 seconds to lean in for the kiss at the altar, and she's vulnerable for 2 seconds, he just fucking lays her out and he goes, fuck you, it's my day. And then you realize that's what he was building towards this whole time with this monster. Funny bit, used to kill, but had a hard time with it. And when I would have a hard time, I'd be like, why is, and people would go, well, because you're talking about a guy hitting a woman. I was like, yeah, but I'm not talking about it like in the sense of like a guy should hit a woman. It's a joke that this lady's an awful monster and she's ruining everybody's lives and cracking like whips on people. And then finally she gets hers in a funny way in the end. And I always felt like, well, if I was a girl, that joke would be much more palatable. You know what I mean?
Interesting.
You You see what I'm
Got it.
saying?
Well, number one, I'm always going to have a problem with jokes where a dude hits a chick. I'm always going to have a problem with that joke.
But just,
I
I'm
get
not
what you're saying.
A guy should, just making the joke of it would be funny. You can't even go there with a joke.
You should like ask me any question about what I think about like Louis C.K.'s material later, because
you don't like it. I'm assuming.
Yeah, I don't like it. I don't like his. I think his television show. I'm so impressed with his show, and I think he's done an amazing job with it. But like his premise, that feels like a very not like I'm not saying like oh that's. But what I mean is like the idea that it's like, and then what if she gets hers? Because I get that in your mind, you're like a very you're like a very sweet, approachable, like fair person.
Right.
I think that's how he portrays himself. You know, sweet, approachable, fair, strong though. You know, you're both strong.
Right.
And I think that sometimes there's a forgetting for men that like you still are the person you are. And that's what you're saying is that like, unfortunately, I'm trapped in this being. And like, at the end of the day, you could still fucking kill it, woman. Like you could do it. You could joke about that.
Woman could kill me.
It would be a lot harder. And I'm agreed. Like as I said,
but women should be in the Secret Service, though.
Yep. Those. Do you date basketball players? Is that who we're talking about, though? When we're talking about bridezillas, is that who we're talking about? Are we talking about a fair fight?
We're talking about bridezillas,
right? So what I'm saying is that I know what that looks like. That's not a fair fight. That's not like a. I'm not talking about. You're not. Hey,
have you seen the men on those shows? They're like these, like fucking Rick Moranis.
Have you ever
types,
seen the movie
like,
Haywire? Like Gina Carano, that's somebody that should be punched in the face. If it is a woman like that in a movie like that, I fucking love it. Yes.
Cameron, you're getting way too deep in this bit. But my point. Here's my point. I agree with Ricky Gervais's perspective on what you can or can't joke about. In his second HBO special, he says, I am telling you jokes. I can joke about anything I want because I'm telling you jokes with the assumption that you are smart enough to know that I am joking. And he goes, I would never go up to a pedophile and go, hey, buddy, you're going to love this one. I wouldn't do that. And that's the best. Well, no, I don't think
anybody would ever say that you can't joke about it. But here's what I would say.
That's what
because I'm not saying you can't. Well,
that's what I'm saying. You can,
but it's
more palatable coming from a woman. Look,
you have to write a better joke. You have to write a better joke.
It was a fantastic.
No, but what I mean is like, okay, so anytime you're taking on a situation,
right,
where you would be in a position of power,
right,
you have to write an amazing joke.
But I wasn't in the position of power. I was saying these.
But you're talking about men versus women.
Fine, but I mean, I also think
it's the same thing as like a rape joke, where it's just
which women are the strongest proponents of. By the way, I've heard more rape jokes come out of the mouths of women than any men.
I honestly don't even want to get into it. I would just say this.
You can't just say that.
No, but I mean, I am saying that my point was going to kind of speak exactly to that, which is like, if something disproportionately affects a community that you belong to, I think it is easier for the audience to go with you. So that's why those women can make those jokes. And men can make rape jokes, but they have to be better jokes because they are starting at a deficit. It's not, the stage isn't an equal place.
Well, yeah.
And just like when you were saying,
that's not what I'm saying.
Go back to earlier, which is like, when you walked out, you're like, when I walk out, I have to be the guy, they think. And I think that when women walk out, you have to.
No, I'm not saying I have to be the guy. That's not what I'm saying. What I'm saying is I come out on stage, they immediately assume I'm the guy.
Right.
I don't have to be that.
I know.
And I'm fighting against that the whole time I'm on stage.
So, yes. So a woman is fighting against not looking like that initially.
Well, yeah. I mean,
every comic is like going to walk out and there's going to be strengths that they bring with them just physically. And then there's going to be like strengths that they bring with them for the groups that they belong to.
Sure.
Like I can say things about lesbians you can't say about lesbians. Of course I can.
Why?
And I don't mean I can. I mean they will work. That's what I mean.
Okay, that's fair.
Which is what I'm actually talking about with this whole thing. I'm using maybe the wrong terminology, which is
that's fair.
I don't think any jokes are off limits.
My biggest concern right now.
What can work.
My biggest concern right now is that I represent the joke fairly. It kills on my album. I mean, it gets a wonderful.
I'm not saying it doesn't kill. That sounds like you had to write a really good joke.
I'm being funny. It's a fantastic joke. I'm
because
literally proud of it.
If you had talked about the same thing, but it had been a shitty joke, that would never have worked. But a woman could have a different opportunity to, like, I have to write great jokes about why I hate men, or like if I ever wanted to write that, because it's not something I can talk about.
Well, that's interesting. I'm glad that you brought up
Easily.
a thing that you felt that you couldn't talk about as easily. I'm
Yes.
serious. Because I've always looked at it as, man, girls can just talk about whatever they want. And here's why I've always looked at it like that. Because so many women get up on stage. Lisa Lampanelli is a great example. I mean, she says horrid. I mean, I'm not saying it's not funny. I'm just saying she says like horridly racist stuff, gets away with it, gets huge laughs. And she always has. That is not a product of celebrity. I knew Lisa back when she would come through Philly and do like one-nighters when nobody knew who the fuck she was. And I saw her, I remember this, get up in front of when I tell you a packed house of black people, standing room only. They didn't know who she was. And she got on stage and leveled that fucking room in a way that I haven't seen many comedians do ever.
Right.
So like she just was able to, she just understood the dance. So I would see her, I'd see the Sarah Silverman types of comics that talked a lot of, where there was a lot of AIDS, rape, whatever. And my perspective was always like, man, girls, not an angry perspective, but I would just be like, man, girls can kind of get away with shit, man. I can't do that. Like, I can't say AIDS. People are like, whoa, dude, whoa. But
right. I think there are definitely things that women have a harder time talking about.
Really?
I would say that one of them is actually ourselves. I think that you're traditionally speaking to a mostly male audience.
Right.
And so they are going to look at the world through male eyes. Right. So then as a woman, you are entertaining. The majority of the people you are entertaining like aren't going to give a fuck about what you're saying.
Right.
So like, and I mean, I'm talking about because the one of the like biggest things that you can do to look like a horrible comic if you are a woman is tell a joke about your period. Like if you are a woman and you get up and tell a period joke, that is shameful. Like to other comics. But that is something that happens to our bodies.
Right.
And like guys, what comic hasn't at some point in some way talked about like semen on stage?
It's a different thing and I'll give you the male equivalent of the period joke. Because Chelsea Peretti, I worked a little bit on a movie called Women Aren't Funny that Bonnie McFarlane directed and Rich Voss and her produced together. And they interviewed many comedians, predominantly female, to talk about this perspective that many men have about women, potentially not being funny. And period jokes came up in it, at least in one of the cuts. I don't know if it's still in the movie, but Chelsea Peretti made this point of, could you imagine if guys bled out of their dick holes once a month, how much they would fucking talk about it on stage? And it's like, I didn't agree with Chelsea's point because there is a male equivalent to the period joke. It's called the dick joke. Dick jokes are the fucking crown jewel of hack whatever. Dick jokes are that's the term you use when you want to shit on a comic.
Okay, I understand what you're saying.
And guys do it. They talk about their dicks. They might not talk about something coming out of their dicks, but they talk, and that's the male equivalent of the period joke.
But it's not. Like, I do not think it is reviled in the same way because I
it absolutely
even
is.
The most. Louis talks about his dick all the time. Do you think he's a hack?
Bill, no.
Okay, he talks about his dick in almost every episode of his show and every single like segment of.
I think
dick jokes are. I'm
I
not
think
saying
there's also
can't be hack, but there's also a way where people are like, oh, that's a beautiful dick joke. Oh, that's a joke about his body. Oh, that's a personal joke. There's like all these levels of dick jokes. There are not all these levels of period.
Oh, there are absolutely funny period jokes. There are absolutely funny period jokes. It's just one of those things like airline food. You better have a great fucking bit on it, or
I'm just saying
waters.
that more audiences are going to be comfortable hearing the word dick than they are pussy. Like unless you're Sarah Silverman. I mean, let's get away from period for a second.
I don't agree with that. That's not true. More audience. I
Men
don't agree.
can talk about their bodies in a much more free way on stage. That is absolutely true. Because if you're a woman, you start talking about your body. Okay, most audiences are predominantly male. That's fucking true. There might be women in there, but they are, and absolutely they're there as well. But the women will laugh at the women. The women will also laugh at the men. Men have a harder time laughing at women. That is true. And I'm not saying that they don't. I'm a fucking great comic. Men laugh at me. But men have a harder time laughing at women.
But what
because women don't say men aren't funny. The fact that even exists as an idea.
No, I agree. I agree with that. But like, what What's the other thing you could talk about with your body besides period that you think wouldn't be accepted? I've heard women talk about their boobs.
But then you're suddenly sexualized. So if you're a woman, you're talking about your breasts. Suddenly, like, all those dudes that are not sure whether or not you're funny are thinking about your breasts.
Well, listen,
which is why I like tend to not. I mean, I'll talk about my body, but I tend to not because it's, you know. So like, you might if you talk about your dick, maybe somebody there are gonna sexualize you. But like, also some people are gonna be like, oh, interesting. But if you're a woman, you talk about your vagina or you talk about your tits, like you're immediately.
Theoretically, but here's the thing. If you talk about them in the detrimental way that guys talk about their dicks, I don't think you're being sexualized. If a girl got on stage and goes, I'll give you a great example. It's not comedy.
But then she's being gross.
Well, guys are being gross, and that's why it's funny.
But sometimes, I'm just saying that sometimes a dick can be a part of a premise and not a punchline. I think it's a little harder to have your breasts in there.
I don't agree. I think I've heard women tell like OBGYN stories that are really fucking funny.
I'm not saying it doesn't exist. I'm saying it's more difficult.
I don't.
I will say this. I saw Sarah Silverman do a show where there was a Q&A right after. And the first guy that got up, he asked what her pussy looks like. He asked her to describe what her pussy looks like. Now, Sarah obviously talks about whatever, any range of things. She certainly talks about her body.
Mm-hmm.
But like the idea that somebody would get up and ask that and it would be the first question is very interesting to me.
Well, listen, there's two ways to look at that. One way is the sexist perspective, not that your perspective on it is sexist, meaning like looking at it as a sexist act on that man's behalf. The other way to look at it is, here's a guy that's heard this girl make a lot of really lowbrow, crass jokes. And lowbrow, I don't mean in quality. I just mean like by talking about fucking really dirty stuff sometimes. And thinks I'm going to be funny right now by saying
absolutely.
This. So, but here's the other thing too. This is the thing that you haven't mentioned about the dick versus the vagina thing. One of the reasons that dick jokes might be more palatable or funnier in a premise or whatever is because there's nothing self-mocking about the vagina. When guys talk about their dicks, it's self-mocking. Immediately, it's guy with a little dick. He's already in the inferior position. And that's why I think if there was something about like I think if like girls started a trend of like saggy tit jokes, it would be similar to the little dick jokes, and I've never really heard a girl do that. But who I have heard do that, and she's not a comic, is there's that Erykah Badu song where she talks about how she's like a real woman and her breasts sag. And I remember when she said that in the song, there was nothing about me that was like, ooh, ugh. It was literally like, oh man, yeah, she's talking about
I love the point that you just made. You know? I love it. I just think that there's also...
Is that the first time we almost like fully agreed all day?
No, I love what you said. I just think that there's also a way that men can hold their bodies and connect with their bodies that is, and it's probably a numbers game. It's probably that there are less women, and it's probably that there are more male audience members. I guess I'm talking like the jerk off motion, how often we see that on stage. And I'm not saying that's like the highest form of our art, but like that is on stage a lot. And there's just, and I'm not saying that, I'm just saying that if you see a woman do that, like if she's doing like a jerk off motion or something like that,
it would kill me.
It would kill you. Right.
Fucking
and it's just a much bigger deal. That's all I'm saying. It's like
if chicks started doing this, like give me a fucking break, like doing like a fingering themselves hand, that would fucking kill me.
But even a guy that's talking about himself, where he's like, so I'm like doing this, like guys will, there is a difference in terms of amount of time that you're going to hear a woman talking about her body.
I'll tell you a bit you need to see. You need to see Lunel do her bit about waxing her pussy. And it's one of the funniest fucking things I've ever seen. And it's one of the nastiest fucking jokes I've ever heard. And she doesn't dance around it. Like, she's like, I put it all on my pussy. My pussy's burning. Like, it's so fucking graphic. And it's hilarious. But I remember watching that with Burr. And we were laughing so hard. And I remember thinking, like, there it is. That's like a dude talking about like his little dick or something. Like, that's like a girl just fucking talking about her pussy in a way that isn't dirty in a sex way. She's just being like, this is what it's like to have a pussy. Ugh, and I thought it was so fucking funny. You need to watch that bit.
So I would love to watch that. That sounds great.
Yeah.
And I will say that like the final thing that I'll just say on this is I mean I hope we can all get there, of course. Like I want that too. But you know that as a dude when you get up on stage, you have to know that like less people are gonna try and
well,
the thing is I don't mind being sexualized in like a cool way where it's like, oh, she's hot. Like I'm never gonna be like, fuck you for looking at me as a sexy thing. I'm talking about like somebody in the audience being like, I want to fuck your pussy.
Look,
which happens.
There's a biological hump that needs to be gotten over for a female on stage.
Yeah.
I'm not saying I think we shouldn't be able to get past this, but it's true. There's an inherent genetic thing that makes men and women look at a woman on stage and immediately go, she's not a hunter leader. She's a gatherer. That's like caveman shit. Hold on.
Okay.
I'm not saying that in a sexist way. I'm saying there's some bullshit in your brain that just goes off like that. It's the same reason why our lizard brains still work. It's the same reason why we have fight or flight happening at all times. The same reason why we have holes in our brains from the internet, because your brain is like on guard waiting for lions to jump out of the trees at all times. There's lizard brain shit in here that goes all the way back to Neanderthal times. And that's a fucking hump that girls have to get over on stage. And it sucks that you have to get over it, but it's true. And I think recognizing it, I'm not saying you have to talk about it. I'm just saying if you recognize that and go, they're going to fucking, what you do, because you're going, for some reason, that's the fucking reason.
No, I mean, I know that
know?
also, but I would just say that like, I think that some of that is also, I know that there is some of it that is biological and that lizard brain thing, but I also think that just as much of it, I think if it was just like a 50-50 thing, I think just as much of it is women being taught to agree and women being taught to support and women being taught to nurture, because we have those tendencies and then we are re-taught those tendencies. So I think that one thing that's amazing about female comics is like, it's this brilliant point. It's like this, it's because you said like hunter leader, but I think about it like a priesthood, really. I think about it like almost like a religious experience where it's like this like philosophical teacher. And I mean, God, that's so fucking arrogant.
What,
but of course
stand up?
Yeah. Like that is our greatest.
I don't agree with that. But
how can you not agree with that? It's us talking about what's important to us.
Here's the thing. Of course, listen, of course we're talking about what's important. I'm not talking about our perspective on it. I'm just saying when the immediate knee-jerk reaction that an audience has, and I've heard comics debate this forever, and they're always scratching their heads going, I don't get it. How come when a female goes on stage, I'm telling you why a female goes. I really
But
believe
I don't necessarily.
I think that's what happens. They just inherently go, nope, I'm not going to laugh.
But I don't know that starts. I don't know that starts when you say it starts. I'm not saying it. There's definitely a part there, but I'm saying that also I have my thought has always been, and I'm glad to hear that new perspective because I think it does, push it back a little bit. My point has always been like, I grew up watching, even though I was like never a Seinfeld fan.
Right.
That was on in every television for like 15 years of our life or however fuck long that show was on TV. And like he is on stage in front of a brick wall. Like it looks right to see a man on stage in front of a brick wall, even to me, a woman, because like Johnny Carson and David Letterman and Jay Leno and Jerry Seinfeld, like the most famous people that we've seen do that pose are dudes. So of course it's going to look weird. Of course it looks weird. Like I
don't think it looks weird, but I think the average person probably deep back here does.
And even maybe I would say like even maybe back there you do. And I don't think that's necessarily a bad thing. I'm saying like we, of course if like we look at the world through every experience we've ever had, and of course you've been a comic for a very long time. I'm not saying you're like fuck women on stage. I'm saying like there's that moment where you're just trying to adjust.
Well,
what's this new thing?
Yeah, I think real quick too. I think it goes a step beyond. I think it goes a step beyond just the Seinfeld Carson thing. I think every image you've ever had of seen of a famous general, warlord, anything, it's them in front of a flag or some kind of stone wall. You know what I mean?
When people ask me why more women don't do stand-up, which is something you're asked all the time if you're a stand-up, I always say the reason more women don't do stand-up is because more women don't do stand-up. Like, you only try to become something you think you could be. You know, like if there's no example, then it's impossible to think that you could be that.
Do you agree with the notion, though, that you know, I remember Christopher Hitchens' thing in that article he wrote that got a lot of controversy, was that he was like, you know, he was like, I think women are less funny than men only because men are the ones that are chasing the sex more frequently than women. So therefore they have to develop this other skill set to charm people. And that's where humor starts to come in.
You know, I read like a book about the brain and laughter.
Right.
That actually talked about laughter as deference.
Right.
So, like, we laugh when we think something is funny, but we also laugh when we're ceding control.
Right.
And in, like, a dating situation.
Right.
Traditional heterosexual dating situation.
Right.
Women being taught, like, oh, the dude should take control of the date. Like, he's going to make the jokes and you laugh. That's, like, how you... That's the conversation. Like, that's
right.
how we let each other know.
Right. And
I think that carries over to stand-up. So I think it's... I don't know that it's, like... I don't know. Again, I don't know how far back it goes. Like, I don't know that it's, like, women don't have this thing. I think it... You know, yeah, like you're saying, men do have to be charming because women can only have, like, one sexual partner at a time if they get pregnant biologically, and men can have, like, a bunch or whatever. They're trying to spread their seed. But I do think it's that act of, like, deference. And so there was a really fascinating part of this book where it was doing percentages of, like, the number of men that will laugh at men versus the number of men that will laugh at women versus the number of women that will laugh at women and the number of women that'll laugh at men. Like, you know, doing the, like, diagram of who laughs most at each other. And it's like even men have a hard time laughing because nobody wants to defer. The easiest thing is, like, for a dude to be the leader from what we're taught our entire life. The easiest thing is for the dude to be the leader and for the woman to defer.
My favorite sitcoms are female-fueled sitcoms. And I think it's a shame that we don't have more of that. Like, I love... The Golden Girls is my favorite sitcom of all time.
We have something in common.
Oh, good. Finally. I think we have more in common than it seems like we do.
We're having great conversation.
I think it's amazing. I think it's amazing. I'm making fun of the fact that
I love it.
Been yelling so much, but I think it's wonderful. This is probably...
Are we done? I think I have to go home or I'm going to faint on the floor.
What are we at here? We're at 2 hours?
Holy
crap.
Okay,
let's get a clean ending. We're going to do 2 parts of this. Let's get a clean ending, and then just some sort of... This is part 2 now. I'll tell you where part 2 starts. Remember when we first said how long are we at? And then Cameron said, let's wrap it up. And I was like, what are we at? An hour 14. But cut all that shit out. And the first thing she says when it starts the conversation, and that's where part 2 should. Well, no, that's not where you'll figure it out. All right. Okay. Okay. We're not going to do any questions. Let's just do the clean ending. What the fuck was?
You were just talking about the Golden Girls.
Oh, like my favorite sitcom of all time is The Golden Girls, like far and away, you know?
Which
it
is
really
the best sitcom of all time.
Yes, we have something in common. Good. Yeah, it's wonderful. And I think it's a shame that there isn't more like that on television or in film. You know, I think it's a bummer that a lot of the time the women that get a shot at being leads in something, there's always a gag that goes along with it. It's either like, well, get it? She's not pretty, so we make fun of that a lot. Or she's fat, see? Or whatever. And it's like, why does it have to be any of those things? You know, it's like, it seems like when women make it, it's more in like that John Belushi, Chris Farley way, where it's like, here comes a tornado of a dame. You know what I mean? Like, we'll dress her up like a ninja and do some time travel comedy instead of just like a Betty White, where it's like, no, here's like an attractive woman that's just fucking hilarious. You know?
I would say that one reason that is such a successful show, probably the reason, is because that show is about relationships. And that show, even though it was written by men, is a very feminine show in their sensibility with each other. That's another thing where the female sense of humor that can be based in relationship, the way people talk to each other, that is something that is like undervalued.
Yeah.
Because, like, dudes might be like that like masculine, just to take it back to masculinity, that like commanding, like, shut the fuck up and listen to me thing. that is funny. There's another type of funny, which is the kind of funny that happens between people that love each other, that are different types of people.
I agree.
And that's why, like, Orange is the New Black is a runaway hit. It's that same reason. It's that thing that women have to offer that is often underrated because it can't be sold to 18 to 35-year-old guys. Fuck that. Let's sell it to those guys.
Well, it's been a dream of mine for many, many years because Sex and the City, one of my other favorite shows of all time, as you can see from the hot pink box.
Yeah, man.
Up there. One of my favorite shows of all time. I love it. It's been one of my dreams for years to like try to make a male sort of Sex and the City. And every time that's like one of those pitching no-nos. It's like, never say that.
Yes.
Never say this is the male Sex and the City. It's been pitched a million times, apparently. It's never been made. That's why I want to see it. And everybody goes, well, Entourage. No, Entourage wasn't. Entourage was a bunch of guys swinging their dicks around that had a lot of money. No, I want to see dudes that are in the position I am in where they struggle with dating and they're sensitive and they have commitment issues and that hurts them. And they're not, they're not looking at commitment issues as being a pimp and crushing a lot of ass. They're looking at it like, man, am I fucked up? And am I ever going to get married? And is there something wrong with me? I watch Sex and the City because I relate to Sarah Jessica Parker. I relate like when she talks about love and she's like, I want to fall into crazy, uncontrollable, whatever love. And I relate to Samantha just boning everybody in sight and just like, I don't know, I'll figure it out. Like, I relate to Miranda, like, because I get bitchy and I'm very pessimistic about the whole thing. I relate to that fucking show. And I don't see it out there for men. And I wish we would see a little more of it because I think that in its own weird way, that is a form of masculinity. I think part of masculinity is not just admitting that you're masculine and acting in the traditional masculine sense, Ernie. Here comes the wrap up. It's also knowing when not to be masculine. There it is. A little effeminate to the masculine. That's right. You with me here, Cameron?
I think that, just to go back to your Christopher Hitchens point to wrap this up, that also assumes that there's nothing that like women have to offer that is different. So yes, Sex and the City is fucking, first of all. But Sex and the City is also women interacting with each other.
Yes.
And that is something that is hard to carry off in stand-up for the same reason that we've talked about. Where you get up on stage and you're like talking about yourself the way that a woman would talk about herself. That can be hard.
Right.
But like, God, is that great when you see somebody succeed at that? That's so brilliant. And I think there'll just be more of it in the future.
I hope so.
I think it's so necessary, and I think it's also where we're headed.
I hope so. Well, you just achieved 2 firsts ever on this podcast. The first is that we did a 2-parter. And the second is that I kind of was a little lost to that last thing you were saying.
Perfect.
And I was agreeing because I was like, this sounds like a thing I'm supposed to agree with.
You can tell me I know.
No, I didn't say no. I literally wasn't sure.
Listen back to it later.
What you were talking about. But it sounded like it made sense. And it sounded like it was like a nice thing to say. Or the right thing to say.
I think it was the right thing to say. I'm very smart.
Oh, great. All
right, man.
Cameron, thanks for being here. What would you like to plug? This was amazing. 2 hours. Yeah.
I can't believe it.
Plug it. What do you want?
Put Your Hands Together, which is my podcast.
Okay.
That
Beautiful.
is recorded at the UCB Theater. You have been at that show. It's a stand-up show.
I did it once, and I couldn't have my set recorded, which it's a great podcast where they record the stand-ups and play the sets, and I was preparing some new material for something, and I couldn't record the set, so you were kind of just let me do an interview.
Well, we'll have you back.
I will come back and do a set
Good.
that you can record. Listen to Put Your Hands Together and check out her albums. One's out now, and the other
one
one's
drops
coming
in
out.
October. Yeah.
October!
Check it.
And speaking of albums, pre-order coming soon for my new, get this, Ernie, double album of unreleased B-side material from the last 7 years of being on the road. More details to come, and whenever this comes out, I don't know. I'm in New York all July. I'm up at Comics 4th of July weekend at the Foxwoods Casino, and then I'm at Helium Buffalo, and then I'm going to be doing spots around New York City. You'll probably find me at the Stand. August, come into Acme Comedy Club sometime in August. So anyway, we'll see you guys. Thanks.